All right, we're in Ephesians chapter 6. We're on page 28 of your notes. We're kind of going through this, and again, as I said before, I'm preaching on this on Sunday, so it's kind of like sometimes I feel like, well, maybe it'll be a little repetitious, and so I really am looking forward to doing this, though, so that you can share with me your thoughts and ideas as I prepare these messages that maybe I can incorporate what I'm learning on Wednesday night. And we can also go a little bit deeper into looking at some of these things in a way that you don't in a message. And so I hope that we'll share those things as we look at it. And we're in verses 10 and 11. It says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord, and the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may able to stand against the wiles of the devil." And so talking about this idea of letter C, of standing. We talked last week about putting on the whole armor of God, and realizing that it is the power of God, it is the might of God that he provides for us. But now we want to talk about what our responsibility is, and that is to stand. And so when he talks about this idea of to stand, that you be able to stand against the wiles of the devil, when he talks about that, what connotation does it put in your mind? When you read that word, to stand, what do you think about? What comes to your mind in that thought process there? So anybody want to bring a comment to that, of this idea of stand? Okay, Tupu?
Be ready, be firm.
To be ready, to be firm?
Yeah, be ready for whatever challenge is coming towards you.
Okay. So it's taking your stand, and in order to do that, like I know you grew up playing football a lot, and so when you're in position, if you're on defense, you had to be ready to for that offensive line and be ready to stand against them, and so there's that aspect of it. So be firm, to be committed, is involved in that word. What else do you think of when you hear the word stand? What else does that connotate in your mind? What do we have to do spiritually in that way? Being vigilant?
Yeah, what it should not look like. We went for the hike at the Cocoa Botanical Garden, and the security guard was in his car with the door open, and I am not joking. He is in his car like this, slumped over, and there is a container of cheese balls sitting in his lap, but he is asleep. And if something had happened, like, he was not being vigilant.
Okay.
He wasn't able to guard. No.
All right. So Noel brought out, being vigilant, and here the security guard, when they went to Botanical Gardens, is slumped down in his car with a bag of cheese balls on his lap, fast asleep, and he's not ready to take a stand. And so it is being vigilant. Your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walking about seeking may devour, and those verses very much tie in what we talked about here. All right. Anybody else in this idea of the word stand? If I'm going to take a stand, what else do we need to? What's the connotation? What's God trying to bring to our mind?
I was thinking today, I'm behind on the devotionals, but the one that I read today, I think is day 5, and you were talking about like thinking through each of the pieces of the armor, what does that mean? And oh my goodness, I just lost what I was going to say. Thinking about like, it's not a matter of if temptation or struggles are going to come, it's when. And so when we forget that, then we're surprised every time, but we
Okay.
shouldn't, because he roams around like a roaring lion. And so if we're standing, we have to be thinking of what might come my way today with the
Right.
things that I'm going to
Being prepared for what's going to come, being ready for that, because we know that it's going to happen sooner or later. We got to be ready for that. All right.
I think that was a challenge. Like, what things would you encounter today that you would have to
Right.
have?
Okay. Okay, good. All right. I hear the word stand. I think of, if I'm a stand, I've got to have a good foundation. For that foundation can no man lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. So I've got to have confidence in my salvation. I've got to have a good foundation. It's got to be solid. You know, if you have the foundation of sand, the waves are going to wash that away. And you can't, you know, if you ever try standing on the beach, especially when waves come in, it's hard to keep your stand. It's hard to keep your balance. And so a good foundation is one of the things I thought of there with that. Also thought about just, you know, taking a stand. You know, you think of the war over in Ukraine right now and how they've got to take their stand and just hold their ground. I'm determined this far and no further. And having that aspect of it as well. Any other thoughts on that word stand before we look at the notes here? Okay, the things I thought about in Ephesians 4:27, if you want to turn back there, it says, neither give place to the devil. And so if we're going to stand, we've got to not give place to the devil. You know, don't give him a place. Now, the word place here comes from the word topos, where we get our word topography from. And it's giving place to the devil. We give him topography. We give him a place to attack from. So how do we not do that? I mean, what does it mean by giving place to the devil? Again, I've been watching the news about this whole Ukraine battle, and one of the things that they've done is just they've determined we're not going to let the Russians come in and take this place. We're going to take it. You know, and when they do, because they realize if they get this place, then that gives them more to attack them from and another opportunity to do that from. And so they've had to push them back and say, you can't have this. And that's not always easy to do. So giving place to the devil. So how is it that we give place to the devil in our lives then? And from a spiritual perspective, if I'm going to stand, I can't let the devil have this place. And let's look at, while we're talking about it, let's look at 2 Corinthians 10 and verse number 4. It says, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. And so we don't want to give the devil place in our lives. We especially don't want to give him a stronghold. And again, a stronghold is a place that they can use, that the devil can use to attack us from. It's a place of strength in that way. So how do we give the devil a place in our lives? How do we give him strongholds in our lives? And how can we not let that happen? Tupu?
You know, there's a saying that give an inch, it's going to want a mile.
Okay. I'm repeating this for those online, but the saying to give an inch, you give them an inch and they'll take a mile.
Right. So there's no way that you got to look at yourself being a Christian, that if there's a part in your walk with the Lord that is not solid, you need to take care of that, because that's where the devil's going to hit.
Right. Okay. All right, there's a part of your life that's not solid with the Lord. And I like the idea of don't give an inch because it'll take a mile. And that's usually what happens is the devil doesn't come in and take it all at once, but we give in a little bit. We watch something we wouldn't have watched before. We listen to something we wouldn't have listened to. We go, it's not bad, but we compromise just a little bit. And it seems like that compromise just leads to another compromise, and that's one of the ways the devil works in our life, is just getting us to say, okay, I'm not going to go all the way here, but I'm going to give in a little bit, and then he's never satisfied with that. You know, and I'm using Ukraine because it's right in the news. You know, they took Crimea, and then they started part of the eastern part of the country, and they just keep moving, and they're not satisfied with that. And now you've given them a stronghold to attack further in that situation. And so the compromise, giving an inch, don't give that inch, don't give a place, don't, you know, and they're learning that now. We can't let them, you know, and we got to attack and take it back. We can't let them have that place, and we got to learn that in our spiritual life. So from a practical aspect, how do we do that? You know, how do we not let him have that place in our life? How do we not let him? So what's the difference between a place and a stronghold, though? Yes.
One way is if we just take something out of our life and we don't put something good back in, then that's just opening another place for them to come back in.
Right. It's going to allow them to come right back when we got to build strongholds to hold on to it as well. And once we leave that place open in our lives, again, Jesus used the analogy of someone who had a devil and cast him out, but never did anything to fill that part of their life, and now there's 7 back. It comes back worse. And so that's a very good analogy of that, okay? How else do we have this happen? what are some examples of places or strongholds that we give the devil in our lives that we allow him to have? Can you think of any?
Let me give a fast little story. When I came out from, in parole prison, they put me in a program, fellowship program, right where I used to hang out.
Okay.
I have to go and renew all my papers, ID, fixed ID, everything. I didn't have a car. I had to walk from the program, gotta go right through to go to the building.
Right.
Now, that's my weaknesses over there.
Yes. Okay.
To fast forward, for me to not to go back there, I have to take my route, take another route.
Right. Okay.
Even though it's far away, I have to take that, because if I go through there, sooner or later, I'm gonna end up back there.
Okay. Tupa's pointing out that, when he came out of prison, they put him in a halfway houses right where he ended up in prison from, the same area where the drugs and everything were. And he had to realize that I can't go there. That's the stronghold of the devil, and I don't want to be in his stronghold. And so he has to find a different route, a different way to go. And I remember we started a program at one point in the church where we called RU, Reformers Unanimous, which was dealing with drugs and alcohol and other addictions. And Tupa was part of that program. And one of the things that they were going to do was go down to this area of town and pass out tracts, I think, and all. And Tupu realized that that's not where I need to be, because that takes me back to a place the devil had. And a lot of times that's what happens, is we allow ourselves to go back to that place where the devil had control. And we got to be careful with that. And that's, I can't go to that place. I can't go there, because that's the place of the devil. And it might not be drugs and alcohol for you. It might be I can't go back to this, because that's where my life was before, and I don't need to go back to that place in my life. And that was a place of the devil, and doing that. So I've got to realize that I can't give him that place in my life and that position in my life in that way. All right? Anything else you thought of on that? The place of the devil, again, is sometimes I can't go back, because that's where the devil is, that's where the place is, and so I don't need to be going there. And sometimes this is saying, you know what, I'm not going to give the devil a place in my life. This is not a part of my life. I'm going to open up. And I see this a lot of times with people where, they allow something to continue in their life that's wrong. It's not so bad, but it's kind of like, because they've allowed this area, the devil uses that as a stronghold then to start attacking other areas of our life. And we've got to deal with that. We've got to say, you know what, this is giving him a place, and maybe this isn't so bad, but now he's got a place to come from and into my life. And we've got to deal with those areas in our lives. And then the strongholds are the besetting sins. The Bible talks about in Hebrews chapter 12, the besetting sins are the ones that so easily beset us. And that's those sins that just kind of grab hold of us. And there are certain areas of our life that we've got to realize this is a stronghold of the devil. It's a besetting sin that I've got to really deal with, because until I get victory over this, the devil's always got a place to attack me. He's always got something he can pull me down with. And so we've got to learn to deal with that and to not allow strongholds in our lives and dealing with those things. All right, so how else can we deal with these places or strongholds? What else can we do there? Think of the context of a battle or war, maybe, and apply it to that spiritual life as well. Take our stand. Yes, sir.
I think that the more you fortify it, the stronger it will be. Like the more you fortify it.
Right. That's a good thing is when I know this is an area where the devil's going to attack me from. I know this is an area where I've been weaker before. I got to fortify that area of my life. And so there's areas of my life, if I'm going to take a stand, this is where the attack's going to come from. I use the analogy of, if you're in a military patrol and you're out patrolling and you're going to have to make camp overnight. As you make that camp, you've got to look around and see where your weak spots and your strong spots are. And so the guy in charge of the platoon may say, well, you guys, you go over here and you cut down those trees over here because the enemy can use those trees as cover to attack us. So we need to clear out a field of fire where we can watch for the enemy over here. And so you cut out some things because that's a place the enemy can attack. And then you might look over here. Well, over there's a bunch of big boulders. You can't cut out the boulders. So we're going to have to put extra guards over that side. We're going to have to put extra watch on that side because the enemy can use those boulders to attack us from. And we've got to realize that and say, you know what, I've got to put extra guard there. And so we look at our lives and say, if I'm going to stand and I know this is a place where the devil's going to attack from, then I've got to be wise and say, you know what, I've got to clear some things out of my life. And those trees aren't bad. There's nothing wrong with the trees, but the enemy can use them as cover to attack me. And so there's some things I've got to say, you know what, that shouldn't be, I don't want that there because that's a possibility attack. And over here is, I need more guard. Keep thy heart, watch thy heart with all diligence, for out of it issues life. And I've got a guard in this area much more so. And then looking at my weapons, I need these weapons over here and those weapons over there to protect against attack as well. Jason?
Along with that, just having accountability and having others assist you with that is a big part of that because you can't do all that alone.
Mm-hmm.
God, through you, can always help you, but He also has placed people in your life to help you.
Right. So I need to have, help with some of those things. I need to have that accountability, that partner that's in the foxhole with me in that process.
Especially door knocking. I mean, if you go door knocking by yourself and you're not equipped with the Word of God,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to struggle. Because,
Right.
you got to have a partner.
Well, and there's certain times out of my life I know that there's going to be more, if I'm going to go to certain areas of the town, of the city at night, I'm taking Tupu with me. It's just that this, Tupu, can you come visit with me? Because I know that's not a safe area of town. And you're not going to go there alone. And again, there's times in your life where you say, you know what, I need somebody here with me because this is a place of the devil. This is a place the enemy can attack. This is a stronghold. This is where, and maybe it's just a stronghold for me, but I need somebody in that situation. So there's times in my life I need to get that help to stand and that accountability. All right, any other thoughts on taking that stand? Again, what we want to do is in this whole visual picture is God's trying to get us to visualize something in our mind and then to take that and bring it over to a point of view that we can also then apply in our spiritual life. Any other thoughts? Okay, and so the next letter there is letter D, the wiles of the devil. And you guys should be all ready to answer on this because I preached a message on it. So you got all the wisdom I gave you in that message, right? And you remember everything I preached on it, right, about that? So the wiles of the devil, that word wiles, what is the idea of that word, the word wiles? Does anybody remember? It came from a Greek word, which is a very familiar English word that we had. Does anybody remember what that word, the word wiles, means? When I hear the word wiles, and this is getting my generation, and I think Brother Brandt at least would know, and I think Tupu you might know too, and maybe the rest of you don't, is I think of the Wile E. Coyote. How many ever heard of that? The Wile E. Coyote. The Roadrunner and the Wile E. Coyote. It was a cartoon when you were growing up. And the Wile E. Coyote was always trying to figure out ways to catch that Roadrunner, and because he wanted to eat him, and Roadrunner was always beating the Wile E. Coyote because he was always ready. He knew he was going to attack. Wherever I am, he's going to try to drop an anvil on me, or he's going to try to set a trap, or he got a rocket, or whatever else it is. That's what I think of the devil. He's going to attack me anywhere he can. He's never going to give up. No matter how many times, the Wile E. Coyote he was the one that got hit by the anvil instead of the Roadrunner. He was the one that the rocket shot into him instead of the Roadrunner, but he just never gave up. And the devil's not going to give up. But the word wily, the word wiles of the devil is a word we don't use a lot. So what's the, remember the Greek word or what it means? What's that? Scheme? That would fit in there. Oh, all right. The word comes from the Greek word methodia, where we get our word methods from. The methods of the devil. It's what are the methods that he uses? What are the tools, the weapons that he has in his tool chest. What are the weapons of war that he has to attack me with? And so the wiles of the devil is the methods of the devil. And look at 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse number 11. Lest Satan should get advantage of us, we're not ignorant of his devices. And it's a different word, but the same idea. Again, we know what his favorite tools are. We know what he does, and so we got to be ready for that. And again, there are certain ones that are basic to all of us. In this case, if you look at this passage, verse 10 says, to whom you forgive anything, I forgive also. For if I forgave anything to whom I forgave it for your sakes, forgave I in the person of Christ. And then let Satan give advantage. So one of the tools he uses when we don't forgive somebody. He uses that as a weapon against us. We're handing him the hammer. We're handing him the rifle. We're saying, here, you can use this to shoot me with. You can use this to hit me with when we won't forgive somebody. That's pretty common across the board. But what are some, there are some also other methods that are specific more to you and I. There are some things that would work with me that won't work with you. You know, Tupu's been clear about his testimony. He came out of drugs. I've never been tempted by drugs. It's just, you know, and you could come up to me and offer me drugs, and I go, you know, that's not the temptation I'm tempted by. And so that's not a tool. Now, again, pride goes before destruction, and any of us can, you know, when we think we will never happen to us, it can, and we're all in danger of that, and never forget that. But at the same time, that's not a tool that Satan uses with me. But there are other tools that he uses with me. There are other methods that work on me, and he knows which ones do that. And so one of the things in your life is to look at the ones we know that are his basic tool chest. These are his weapons of choice. But then what are the ones specific to me as well that he uses? So what are some of the devices? What are some of the tools that the devil uses to defeat us with besides not forgiving? That's one. Can you name some other ones?
The devil is a conniving guy.
So he's a liar.
Yeah.
Okay. So lies. We believe the lies of the devil. You know, we're taking Financial Peace University class, and in there, Dave Ramsey talks about some of the lies of the world. You know, you need credit. You can't live in this world without credit, and you gotta have a good FICO score, and those are lies of the world. And when we stop believing those lies, it changes our whole perspective financially. And there's lies. You know, everybody's doing it. You know, you can't get married and be a virgin anymore. You gotta, if you want to get ahead, you know, you gotta drink with people, because if you don't drink with them, you'll never get ahead. Those are lies of the devil, and he's constantly lying, and we're believing his lies instead of you know, saying, hey, wait a minute, that's a lie of the devil. You don't have to, you know, that's not what God says. And so we believe the lies of the devil. So what else are some of his devices, his methods that he uses?
Bribing.
What's that?
Bribe.
Pride?
Bribe.
Bribing. Yeah. It tries to say you really need this. Again, he did that with Jesus when he said, if you'll bow down to me, I'll give you all these things. And so sometimes it is offering us. What did it say about Moses? He rejected the riches of this world for the pleasures of this world. He said those pleasures, the devil offers us the pleasures, and we think, boy, I could just be happy if I had this or had that. And sometimes it's things that are immoral, and sometimes it's not. If I just had a new car, if I just had, you know, a better job or whatever else it is, that sometimes is the thing he uses. But sometimes it is offering us the pleasures of this world. You can have fun in life. And doing that. Okay, what else? What's that? Anger. Our emotions. And the devil will use the emotions against us. Be angry and sin not. And I think that applies to all of our emotions. And that's a tool the devil uses. If he gets us emotional, we make an emotional decision rather than a right decision. Okay? Any others? I mean, I think he's got a lot more than that.
He loves himself.
What's that?
He loves himself.
He loves himself. Yeah, he definitely does that. Okay. I think bitterness is another tool of the devil. I think doctrinal carelessness. When we're not careful in our doctrine, the devil can get us. Sometimes he gives us wrong, gets us to believe wrong doctrine. It's like somebody believes I can lose my salvation. That's a tool of the devil. Or somebody believes, well, God will never forgive you for that. He'll never be able to use you again, and that's a tool of the devil. And so that wrong doctrine. I think also sometimes he gets us to focus on some minor doctrine rather than, so we get off on this hobby horse, we get off on this thing that's not important, and now we're not leading souls to Christ, and we're not doing the work of the Lord because we're all focused on something that's not what God wants us to focus on. Any other thoughts? Let me get Zach first, I'll come back to you. Look, Zach first, and then it'll come to you.
Anything that sets your life out of balance.
What's that?
Anything that sets your life out of balance. Focus too much on one good thing brings your life to a point where it's out of balance. So it can weaken other areas of life, which could set you virtually out of path.
So getting out of balance, is that what you're saying?
Yes, getting out of balance.
Okay. Out of balance. Yeah.
Getting your life out of
Right.
anything in your life that would be used to focus on
Right.
keep your life out of balance.
The devil's perfect habit is to say, hey, put all your focus on work and neglect your family. Put all your focus on work and neglect your spiritual walk. So getting us out of balance. Oh, yeah, that's definitely a trick of the devil, a tool of the devil. Okay, Tupu?
I was going to add on to what you're saying about doctrines. That's why it's very important about knowing the right doctrine.
Know what you believe and why.
Because it's very easy. There's some doctrine out there. It's just one word can persuade you to go to the wrong off track.
Yeah. Well, now what he did with Eve in Genesis is he said, did God really say this? And questioning what God said, and what he did with Jesus, and took Scripture and twisted it. So that's very much a tool of the devil. Okay? Any other thoughts? So, number one there, look at 2 Corinthians 11, verse number 3. And again, I know some of this is repetitious because I preached on it, but obviously some of you don't remember what I preached on because you couldn't remember what the word was, but I'll forgive you for that. And I don't blame you. I forget sometimes. My wife will call me up and say, what'd you preach on Sunday? And because she didn't hear the message yet, and I don't know. Verse 3 says, but I fear lest by any means as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your minds should be corrupted from simplicities in Christ. And that's where I get so frustrated dealing with people is can't you see this? And it's just like they're off a little bit, but that little bit off, they just can't see because it's so subtle. It's so hard to see that. And that subtlety is there. And Satan sows doubts, and he twists scriptures, and he lies, and that just little subtle things that we can't see. A lot of times you see that with religions. There's enough truth that you don't see the falsehood. And we see this in our lives as well. And so that subtlety that he has in that way, and when he attacks us, and we don't see that. Noel?
And it's like what you've talked about before, 1 degree off doesn't seem like that much in the beginning, but once you get down there, it's huge.
Right. Yeah, the idea of 1 degree off now is not much, but the longer you go, the further that difference is. And so how we can just so subtly move away from, and that's again what Satan tries to do is get us to be subtle on that. Look at verse 14 of chapter 11. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. So he transforms himself. He uses, like I got in trouble with the message on, talked about Mike Sears being a devil, and Pastor Andy and my wife. And that last one really got me in trouble. But Satan can use even sometimes good people, sincere people. Remember when Jesus said, I'm going to have to die? And Peter grabbed hold and said, no, Lord, you can't die. What did Jesus say after that? Get thee behind me, Satan. Because Satan can use even sincere people. And we have to be careful of that. And sometimes he can have them be used to confuse us and get us off track. And then John 8:44, we've talked about already. He's the father of lies. John 8:44 says, "You are of your father, the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it." I think what happens is the biggest liar, who's the biggest liar that we believe? Who's the biggest liar? Yeah, right here. Lying to myself. Lying to myself. That's the liar that we believe. And we believe a lie instead of believing the truth. And again, my counsel all the time, I deal with that. People that just have sold themselves on a lie. And the devil has sold them that lie, and they hold on to that. So he's also our accuser in Revelation chapter 12. Revelation chapter 12 and verse number 10. Revelation 12 and verse 10. "And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength in the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brother is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night." So, what does that mean? He's our accuser. How does that apply to you and I?
Devil doesn't rest.
He doesn't rest, okay?
Doesn't rest. He doesn't, rest. He works 24 hours.
Okay, so how does the accusing work, though? I mean, how does that apply to me? How does that work in that way? He's accuser, and so he's accuser of the brethren, which I'm one of the brethren, you're one of the brethren or sisters. You and I are is talking about us. So the devil is accusing us, and I think there's two aspects of that accusing that we can apply it, and how we understand. Well, how does that affect me? So what are the aspects of that? Noel?
The whispers or the yells that we hear about this or this or this that may or may not be true, like we're not good enough. Well, yeah,
Okay.
actually, that is true. It's not a lie, but because of Christ and his sacrifice, we are.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think accusing in our own conscience, the little voice inside of us that says you're not good enough, you could never be forgiven, God can never use you, your marriage can't work out, just give up on it. So that accusing, that voice inside of us, and I think that is very much the devil doing that over and over again. God doesn't tell us that. And again, I see that with a lot of people. I get calls all the time. Well, I think, that's the lie of the devil. And you've got to stop and say, that's the lie of the devil. That's not true, because God's not accusing me. He's forgiven me. So this can't be of God. But it does say here, which accuse them before our God day and night. So when you hear that phrase there, who do you think of in the Bible? John? Job. Now, what does that mean? Is the devil meet with the Lord every day and say, hey, look at Wayne down there? First of all, I can't explain it. I mean, why does Satan even have access to God? And why would God let him bait him like that, so to speak, and say, well, make this happen? I don't understand all of that, but apparently there's some ways that the devil has where he can accuse us before God. And so how should that work in my understanding that? How should that work in my life? Did Job understand that this was all going on when he went through his trials? No, he had no clue. Okay, we do, because we got the book of the Bible to tell us about it, but he had no clue that was going on. But during this whole process, what did Job not do? He told his wife, He didn't curse God. He said, listen, when I got good, I praised God for it. When I got bad, I still need to praise God. He didn't curse God. Now, he went through a lot of depression, and he went through some really questioning times, and he had a lot of, he struggled with it. He wasn't perfect by any means, but then he came to the end of the book, and he finally just said, you know what, Lord, I don't understand, but I trust you. And God is still God, and God is still good, even if things aren't going good for me. And it was that point that everything turned around for him, and especially when he prayed for his friends. So why did God give us all that? To help us understand, when life goes bad, it's not, we don't understand why. And Job never did understand why. And one of the things that really challenges me with Job is that in the end, he got back, I think it was 10 times as much money and everything like that. But what was one thing he never got back? Larry? Was that? His kids. He never got his original kids back. He got more kids. And there are times in my life where I thought it would be nice if I could trade my kids in for new ones and all, but he never got his kids back. So even though he was restored and even though God blessed him, there was still a loss there. That if you've ever lost somebody like a child, you understand that. But he said, you know what, Lord? I'm trusting you. Satan may be up there making all kinds of accusations, and some of them may be true. In Job's case, it really overall, Job loved the Lord, and he proved that to himself. But he did struggle. And I'm sure there's a lot of times Satan's up in heaven saying, did you see what that guy you made a pastor did? Do you see what his attitude is? Do you see what he's doing right now? And he's making those accusations. But here's the great part. God doesn't listen to Satan. He may have, with Job, he said, okay, let me show you. But God already knew what he was going to do. And so he's an accuser. And so when I start having these self-doubts, or when accusations are made against me, ever had somebody make an accusation against you that wasn't true? Or maybe they made an accusation that was true. I still have a God in heaven that's forgiven me. And so I'm not going to let Satan have the victory here. It's like remember when you're kids, how your brother or sister would run and, say, Mom, do you see what Wayne did? And my mom would deal with it, but at the same time, she didn't stop loving me. And so he's our accuser and our adversary. In 1 Samuel chapter 1, it talks about Hannah, and you don't have to necessarily turn there, but you remember how she was so depressed. Remember, Satan uses depression and these kind of things against us. That's one of his tools. And she was so depressed, she just couldn't eat. She couldn't, she'd forgotten all the blessings of God. She had a husband who loved her. She had, a lot of things going for her. But it says her adversary also provoked her sore. And that probably in her mind, who was her adversary? The other wife. Yeah. And that doesn't mean the other wife was constantly looking at her saying, nah, I got kids, you don't have kids. We've all met people like that rub it in, right? You've all had that in your life. I don't think she was. I think just the fact that she was there and she had children just got to her. And she felt like every time she saw that, you can't help it. We have a lady we counseled before that was, had gone through a divorce and everything, and it was hard for her to be around happily married couples because she felt so like, I don't have that. When you have a miscarriage or you can't have children, it's hard to be around, here's somebody with a newborn. That's hard because you don't have it. And boy, Satan knows those areas in your life. I don't have the money, I don't have this, or I don't have that. And boy, he just knows how to use that against you. And sometimes he provokes them where they are making it hard for you on purpose. They're rubbing it in. But most of the time, they're really not. It's just in your own mind, in your own heart. And Hannah had to come to a point and say, you know what, Lord, I'm done with this. I'm not letting Satan have this place in my life anymore. And I'm turning this over to you. I'm giving it to you. and we have to be willing to do that. So he's our accuser and our adversary, and we struggle with that. So what are the methods of the devil? What are the things that he uses in our lives to defeat us? And that's part of the stand we take, is I got to realize this is how the devil's going to attack me. And some of them are things that every people have to do, but some are more specific to me personally. Larry?
My own family that loved and we grew up together, he used it to separate us like one.
Your own family that you love and grew up with, they can sometimes be that use of the devil because they're going a different direction. Okay? Any other thoughts on that? Christine? A little louder? Situations. Yeah, this is a situation we go through. And again, sometimes it can be the people we love the most. It can be people that hurt us. And the devil will just take that and use it. Well, they don't really love you. See what they did to you. Or God can't forgive. Or, and all these things. That's the lies of the devil. And he uses those against us. Somebody else had their hand up. Yes.
Seeing something that you want, but you can't have.
See something you want, you can't have, is the tool of the devil. Sometimes he gives you what you want. Sometimes the worst thing the devil's done is give me exactly what I want. And, and we find out that didn't bring the happiness I thought it was going to bring. I've known couples that couldn't have children, and they had a child, and that turned out to be one of the worst things that happened to them. I mean, sometimes it's the things we want even that can be there. But he gives us that desire for that. Okay? Any other thoughts or comments? What we have to do is become more aware of what are the ways the enemy is going to attack, and what do I need to put guard on? What do I need to put my protection on? How do I see that attack coming? I was reading in an article today. There's a teenage boy in Ukraine that pretty well saved Kyiv because he had a drone, and he used it all the time, and the Ukrainians couldn't see where the Russians were, and so the dad heard about it and said, well, my son can help you, and he put the drone up there, and now the drone showed them, and they were able to know, okay, there's the enemy, and they attacked and pushed them away. That extra protection. So what do I need to see those attacks before they come? What do I need to see where these are coming from? And if I'm aware he's accusing me, then I know that's a lie of the devil. If I'm aware that, hey, this is where I'm struggling with, that's where it's coming from, and I have to look at that and deal with it. So if I wake up every day saying, this is where the attack of the devil is going to come from, I can clear it, get a clear shot at field of fire over here. I can put extra protection over here. I know that it's coming. I can be watching for that and ready for that and take my stand. Okay, any other thoughts before we close up for today?
And it can happen in a church, within the church.
Oh, yeah.
And for our body of believers here, especially our men, open our eyes and be aware.
Mm-hmm.
The devil will use one of our own people.
Yeah. It can use a lot of things, and that's again what we have to understand. The devil is subtle, and he's crafty, and he's ready to attack, and he's going to do it any way he can. Okay? All right. So we'll continue on next week. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. We'll see you on Sunday.